Lars, you talked about a lot of practical challenges in implementing something like a global carbon emission tax. And that brings me to the question, a very basic one, that when someone like IMO is doing this on a global scale, consulting with several member states, getting a consensus and devising this policy as a framework over the years, do you think these kind of practical challenges would have been voiced by major container lines, major shippers, or they would have been hearing this already? Or
I'm sure they will have been airing it, but this is also where we need to recognize that especially different sectors of shipping appear not to necessarily have the same interests.
Okay.
You have some sectors, now I'm potentially generalizing a bit too much, but it appears to me that one of the more progressive sectors is the container shipping sector. Not all companies in the sector, but as a sector.
Right.
Whereas you then have other sectors over in, for example, bulk and tank that are not necessarily moving as fast as the container shipping.
Right.
They would have been voicing different views on what they would like to see going forward, what is realistic going forward. And if you then look within the container shipping sector, it's also clear that some of the more progressive lines, take a Maersk, for example, they have for years been pushing the view they want more regulation, they want more legislation, which from their perspective makes all the sense in the world. Because if you want to be moving rapidly on this in an environment where there's limited willingness to pay by shippers, and therefore an enormous upside for shipping lines that don't want to go down this path and have extra cost, the only way you can then push this agenda is there has to be a level playing field for all, and that requires regulation. Logically, that makes perfect sense. The challenge I have with this is, if we are honest, this is an industry where there has never been a level playing field. And that goes beyond what we talk about now. Something as simple as government subsidies. I mean, there is plenty of issues with government subsidies in the industry to start with, and they take many guises, many shapes and forms. It can be government subsidies in terms of access to loan guarantees. It can be government subsidies in terms of subsidies for building vessels at favorable prices. It can be outright loans under favorable conditions. It can be favorable taxation conditions. There's a whole web of elements out there that just means this is not a level playing field. And that might be me being slightly cynical, but I don't see a level playing field when it comes to the carbon competition either. And then again, we come back to the IMO being a collection of states. I see a global development where the world is becoming more fragmented, not more united. The geopolitical tensions out there, to me, signals it's going to be harder, not easier, to get consensus in all kinds of international fora, where IMO is just one of them.